By now, you should have been able to gather or buy your fair share of ramps at farmers markets or even certain stores. We are in the peak of our season and there's no better time to try them than right now. This recipe is super fun and gets better as it sits in the fridge, so let's get started. We're going to start with 10 ounces of button mushrooms or whatever mushrooms you have, small diced like so. Next, we're going to julienne 1 shallot using magic. Yeah, magic. Both of these are going to go into a 12-inch skillet with about 2 tablespoons of olive oil or so over medium-high heat. As we've learned in previous videos, mushrooms are going to take longer than you think, about 10 minutes or so keep them moving and allow them to slowly expel their moisture as they cook. Once the pan has some nice fond on the bottom and your mushrooms are roasted nice, we're going to deglaze the pan with 1 tablespoon of Prosecco vinegar, but you can use sherry vinegar or even a dash of white wine if you have it. Next, throw in a nice hunk of our ramp butter from our previous video that I know you guys have all religiously watched. I'll link that below just in case you missed it, along with some fresh or dried thyme leaves, about a teaspoon or so. Notice how this all looks amazing. I mean, it honestly looks like a big old thing of mush, but trust me, it smells and tastes delicious. For our cheese mix, start with 6 ounces of goat cheese at room temp, a half a cup of Parmesan cheese, 1 egg yolk, 2 tablespoons of lemon zest, and 2 tablespoons of heavy cream. Mix all of this together until homogeneous. We're going to pop this in a piping bag and leave it at room temperature so our mix is pliable. This can also easily be done ahead of time and then kept in the fridge. Just remember to allow it to temper before using for about 30 minutes at room temp. Preheat your oven to 375 degrees and get your favorite tart pan ready to go. Next, for the puff pastry, I'm using good old Pepperidge Farm frozen sheets, which honestly work great. Allow them to slightly thaw so they are pliable before you use them. You can keep these in your freezer and use them for a bunch of handy little projects. Pepperidge Farm, please sponsor me. Thanks. Anyway, place puff pastry on a floured work surface and roll into a 16-inch long rectangle or whatever shape your tart pan is. It's a good idea to keep this tart pan close so you can use it as a reference as you are rolling it out for size. I like to do this handy little rolling pin trick while rolling out all my dough on top of itself so then I can easily roll it onto the tart pan like that. It's a nifty little trick I learned. Next, we are going to slightly pick up the sides or edges of the tart and allow them to drop into place. Be careful with this. We don't want to puncture or get any fingerprints in the tart pan itself. You can then, using a rolling pin, trim off any excess sheets that we may have. If you feel like this is taking too long and your dough is getting really soft, no sweat. Pop it in the freezer or fridge for about 10 minutes before moving on. It's actually going to help the whole tart bake more consistently later on. Now for the ramps, I like to separate my leaves beforehand so I know which I am using. I like the ones connected as the red stems will look beautiful and hold a nice texture in our tart while it bakes. It gives it this nice little bite. Spread the mushrooms over the bottom of the dough, making sure it is even. If the base isn't even, the whole thing's not going to be level, and with the simple dishes like this, attention to detail is always crucial. Next, pipe your cheese mixture on top and smooth it out using an offset spatula. Hit it with a few cranks of black pepper, and you're ready for your leaves. Lastly, arrange those leaves lengthwise over the cheese in whatever fancy design your little heart desires. Then using your fingers, gently press everything into place so that they don't get out of whack while they are baking. Season with a little bit of kosher salt and bake the tart until the crust is golden brown. This should take about 30 minutes or so. Now when this tart comes out, it is going to look puffy. Allow it to rest on a cooling rack for at least 15 minutes before diving in. You'll notice all that puffiness start to recede as it rests. Then gently remove the tart from its pan. One major pro tip, this tart eats best after it's been fridged for a few days. So of course you can dig in while it's warm, but definitely save a piece for the next day for comparison. All the flavors really come together after it's been sitting a bit. This tart will last you about 4 days, but we both know that won't be an issue. I like to plate mine up with some lemon zest and some of last year's pickled ramps for some nice acidity against that goat cheese. Congrats on making the ideal snack or lunch this spring, and I assure you this is a recipe you'll keep close every year. Till next time, friends.